On a recent trip with Cross International, we had the opportunity to be a part of feeding literally hundreds of children. We were in a small village, and as we drove up across what was a very barren stretch of land and literally no trees in sight, the one thing we did see were kids running from every direction as a van pulled up. As we got out, the kids immediately surrounded us and were holding our hands, and they were so excited to see us, and they knew that something just fantastic was going to happen. And so as we carried pots of food, literally, that the missionary team had cooked of rice and a substance on top that had meat and protein in it. So we carried those large pots into a feeding center that they had erected there. Literally, probably 150 to 200 kids filled the building. It was incredibly hot. And as the kids entered, they gathered together, and they were sitting very close, and kids everywhere on benches and on the floor. And we began to feed these children. And before we started, the missionary's wife asked me to shut the door, because we literally had let all the kids in that we could let in at that point. And we began to feed these children one by one. They were fed, and as we were doing that, she asked me to hold the door shut. And eventually she held up two fingers and said, "You can let two more in." And I would crack the door, and the force of the kids pushing from the outside, there were 50 to 100 kids that were still outside and pushing to get in. And literally the force of the door, I could barely hold it because of the force, and we would let two more in, and we'd have to shut the door. And then eventually she'd hold her finger up and say one more. And then one final time she said two more. And then that was it. But friend, there was no pigeonhole as I held that door shut on the hungry kids that were outside. I can't begin to tell you the feeling that came over me at that moment. I'm going to ask you to do something tonight, and that is this. Open the door for the next child. 2 kids, 3 kids, 10 kids.